Now, I must start with a thank you to Father Chris, the administrator of the parish, and to Tricia, the business manager, and to all of those of you who are members of St. Augustine Parish, because you have done me a great honor and given me a great privilege that I may celebrate my golden Jubilee of ordination in your beautiful church. And I love this. Of course, I also want to say that you have welcomed me here over and over again with open arms. And I felt very much at home here, and I love this community, and I love this church, and I'm very happy to be here to celebrate this with you. So it's a very important day for me. And otherwise, now there are some of you here who have come for the Sunday to fulfill your Sunday obligation. Is there anybody like that? Well, that's my thought. And if you are concerned, I'm saying the Mass of the 17th Sunday, so this will fulfill your obligation for everybody, with all lines read tomorrow. I hope you won't, but anybody will. So this will fulfill your obligation for the Mass, for the Sunday. I'm sure it is all right for me to say something about priesthood today. Would that be acceptable? If you're against it, please say so. But I don't think you are. And it might be good to say something about vocation to priesthood. That might be good. And it might be good to say something about my vocation to priesthood. Is that acceptable? Well, I've got a lot of priesthood. That's good. Now you can suffer and you can stay. Because the story begins with a little book. I don't know if you've ever seen this kind of a book before, but can you see that little book?
Okay. It's a prayer book.
Did anybody ever see a little book like that before?
Prayer book.
What is it?
A prayer book.
It's a prayer. I've had it in my pocket for nearly 70 years. It's a First Communion prayer. It is my First Communion prayer. Do you have yours?
Yes.
I haven't got the money to pay that prayer. And let me read the inscription here. It says, to Roddy, in remembrance of First Holy Communion, the 5th of July, 1938. God help us. None of you were born then. From your cousin Billy. Do you know him? My cousin Billy. Well, that's the guy who sent him the letter. So you think I had that in my pocket? No, of course, you know where I found that book. Some years before my mother died, I was home and she said, you should go around the house and see things you want to keep. And because your brothers will come here when I die, and they'll take all the furniture, and I know you don't want it anyway. So I searched, and this is what I found, this beautiful book, my First Communion. Why is my First Communion important to me? Well, it may be important to everybody, but the thing is, it is especially important to me for a certain reason. And the reason is this. I was in the First Communion class, and we were about 7 or 8 little children. I was 6 and a half, 7. Well, that's the way you talk when you're 6. You say you're 6 and a half. And then some others were 7 or more. And the teacher was Miss Corbett, a woman of outstanding character, of course. And she asked us one day in the class, what do you want to be when you grow up? I remember thinking that was an absurd question. What would I know about growing up? I hadn't even started. And I thought it was a ridiculous question. And I said, I don't know. And then the next fellow beside me, he said, oh, I don't know. But there was a gentleman of 7, he was very mature compared to us. He was 7 already. He said with great conviction, and he was a great friend of mine all his life. He said, I am going to be a priest. Now, I was watching the teacher's face, and I could see that was the right answer. and I was very frustrated that I hadn't thought of it. But it's so simple. The priest used to come and have coffee in our house every morning. Why didn't I think of it? And so I did. But when the class was over, then I said to him, why do you want to be a priest? And he said, because all priests go to heaven. Wow. I never heard that before. That was news. That was theology that I hadn't heard. And I said, well, in that case, I'm going to be one too. I have to warn you, though, that his theology is not that reliable. And then he got married and had 3 children. The whole man is now in heaven. I hope he's not listening to this. He won't be very pleased. And so, the question, I put a question to you. I like to put this question because it's interesting to me. Do you think that was the vocation of the priesthood? If you do, raise your right hand. You think that was the vocation? Raise your right hand if it was. Oh, what a cautious crowd. Who thinks it wasn't a vocation? Well, God bless it. Somebody make it wasn't. You can't win them all. But I never met so many absentees in all my life. The thing is, I have strong evidence for you. Don't I? I'm standing here in front of you, 50 years of priest, and you doubt that was a vocation. Come on. Actually, there's a point in that. That's how the Lord moves us, you know. It's a simple little thing. Oh, like, so little children, they're all dopey and everything, but Jesus didn't say that. He said, no, little children know what they're at. And actually, if you talk about faith, my faith was strong then, very simple and very direct, and no problems with it. And that's how many of you were too. And Jesus didn't say, quote, gospel for children. I was saying, let them come to me. There's a lovely scene of Pope Francis in Rio, where they had a whole bunch of little children came out and joined him on the stage when he was finishing his talk there. So, you know, the fact that you're young doesn't mean you can't think. And I asked a very good question. I said, why do you want to be a priest? And I had a good reason. I'd like to go to heaven too. So it's not, so that's the origin of it. Of course, that's not the end of it. That's the beginning of the story, and it goes on a long time. I joined the Jesuits, you know that. And but then, of course, I left the Jesuits. I had a conversion. Not like poor Father Bob, he hasn't been converted yet. I'm working on it. But we'll get a conversion. But so I had a conversion. But I was you probably know that I converted all the people of Central Africa. I told you about that. Do you remember that? I told you. That's right. Thank you, yeah. But anyway, the thing is that might be slightly imaginative view of the situation. I'll get down to the facts of it. When I was in Central Africa, most of my work there as a priest and as a student was teaching high school, which was a very wonderful work and was designed to change that country into an educated place, and that was very important. It was also training teachers for primary school, another very important task, and eventually administrator of a teachers' college. So those were very important works. But I never could see them as exactly priest work. I never did. I mean, some people might say that's priest work, and many Jesuits spend their whole lives doing that kind of work, and it's a very important work. But I was never satisfied. That wasn't the work of a priest. The priest works in a parish. He ministers the sacraments. He hears people's trials and difficulties and helps them. He deals with them when they are bereavement is talked with. He deals with all that's what I really wanted to do. Now, you might say, well, how did what did I anticipate? Now, there's a curious thing about that. During those years, and they were 15 and 20 years or more, I had a recurring dream. Do you have any dreams? Do you ever remember them? Sometimes I do. The recurring dream was, I imagined myself working in a parish and doing all those things I just described and being extraordinarily happy. But why was it I only dreamt about it? I think partly because it wasn't a thinkable thought. I knew what my commitment was. I knew what the Jesuit order would expect of me. And then, when I presented that an argument with the Jesuits, you can't win arguing with Jesuits. Come on, give me a break. I couldn't win that time. So eventually, the Lord moved things, and things changed, and I moved here. So that was a very significant change. Does God's voice come to us through our dreams? You know, in the scripture you get that. But I'll put it this way to you. Sometimes, something we desire, which we're not really prepared to admit and face, goes into the subconscious, and then it appears in our dreams. I think that's true, and that's the way the Lord speaks. Actually, He uses our idiom all the time to communicate. He uses our tactics. He uses our consciousness, our unconsciousness. It really doesn't matter. And so eventually that desire became so strong that eventually I was found to do it and found a way to it. Now, I spent many different parishes here, starting up in Oxnard, Santa Clara. I think there's some people from Santa Clara here, and that's quite a long way away. And that was just kind of getting to know the country, getting to know what life was about. My next station was up in Santa Clarita, in Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Now, I mention that particularly because, I'll tell you why, I was there last Sunday and I told this to the people there. In a way, that was the first time I really lived the life of a priest. You might say, a priest is ordained, he should come ready-made from the box. You know, but it doesn't happen like that. It's like every other profession. You learn how to live it and be it and carry it out only by experience. And experience becomes the most important factor, much more important than the education or anything you might have learned. And so that was my great experience. I spent 10 years there. It was 10 years hard, very tough, but it was a very powerful experience of priesthood. 6,000 parishioners. I mean, 6,000 families in the parish. That was a lot of people. The pastor was a very good businessman, but he wasn't as interested in the pastoral life as I was. That's putting it mildly. Anyway, that's how it was. And so I had lots to do. But that's the best thing you can find in your life. The more you have to do, the better off you are to see. And so that was a great experience. And I did thank the folks in that parish, because in a way they made me the priest that I am. And of course I did say to them also that really God calls us to the people. I mean, I'm here because someone called me to lead you in worship this evening. And when the phone rings from the Tricia calls me in my house, I hear her voice and I know it's the Lord's voice calling me to service and to work with you. So that's how I see those years. And then I had the joy of going to the beach. Venice Beach. St. Mark's. And that was pure delight. That was delight. And of course the joy of that was that it needed a lot. The fabric of the place was very neglected, so there was a lot of work to do to recreate it and rebuild it. And the Lord provides. I found marvelous people there who just helped me in every way. People who knew something about all that. People who knew about building and structures and everything else, knew about finance and money and so on, and they came to my rescue. So that was a wonderful period of experience. Actually, a little story about it. My predecessor there was Monsignor Michael Hogan. He had been there for 20 years. And I was there, after I was there a year, there was a priest friend of mine and his who mischievously asked him, how is the new pastor getting on? It was a very provocative question. And Monsignor Hogan drew himself up to his height and he stared in front and he says, 20 years work down the drain. Poor man, he died soon after. But anyway, Monsignor Hogan. But he suffered a lot. So that was a lovely time. What about St. Augustine? I can't omit you because this has been my latest experience and it's been one of the best. Priesthood is definitely something you grow into. It doesn't happen to you. You don't become a priest overnight. You have to learn over the years to be what you are called to be. And it isn't, I could tell you all the trials of a priest, like all the problems. Would you like to hear all the problems I had as a priest? Would that make sense? We could hear tonight. But the thing is, let me say something about problems. If I hadn't had bad times, how would I know when I was having good times? How would I know the difference? If I hadn't had some very bad times, how would I know what a great time I'm having now? That's how it is. It's the contrast that makes the good times really appreciated. Otherwise, you wouldn't really appreciate it. You wouldn't know. So there were some tough times, of course, obviously. But that's for another day. Maybe we'll come back another day and we'll do some tough times. That'll be fun. So you're very good to hear these words, and I'm happy to be able to say them to you. And it's certainly fulfilling something in me just to say what I've said, because I know you know me. Oh, I forgot something. I forgot something absolutely vitally important. Oh my goodness, I forgot something. I'm going to be in trouble. In St. Mark's, in the late 90s, 5 young people appeared out of no place. I don't know where they came from. And they had Italian accented English of Dublin. And they were lovely people, and they were very nice to me, and they were very friendly, and I got to know them very well. And eventually, they drew me into their net, and I became a part of their community. They were from a community called Communion and Liberation, and they were a beautiful community all over the world, actually, and I never met them before. But when I retired and was struggling to find a way for my own life to work, they saved me. They were my saviors, really. They were that. I'd like them to know that, and I'd like you to know it. What were they saved? Why was it so important the way they saved me? Well, first of all, they reminded me a lot and brought me back to to the charism of St. Ignatius. Their charism of Father Gistani had to do with the presence of Christ in my life. Now that's something that I forgotten or I wasn't particularly conscious of a lot of times. And so they brought me back to that. And then I stayed with them, and I'm still with them, and they still have a powerful influence on me, and it brought me great joy. In fact, there's a thing we say in the, we used to say at the beginning of the Latin Mass, "Introibo ad altare Dei." Well, what's the rest of it? Juventutem Deum. What was the Juventutem what? I know what it means, though. I know it. There's experts here, thank God. Anyway, I know what it means. It means I go to the altar of God, to God who gives joy to my youth. Now, I have my own translation of it. And these folks, many of them just here, they brought back the joy of my youth, which is quite a different translation. And I thank you for that. It's a great gift. I'm still in front.